For decades, the United States of America has stood as the undisputed leader of military technology. The most advanced fighter jets, the most precise guided munitions, the most sophisticated surveillance and intelligence architecture the world has ever seen. America built the stealth bomber. America built the Tomahawk cruise missile. America put precision-guided weapons on the map. And for most of the 20th century and the early 21st, no country on Earth could match the raw technological superiority of the American military machine. That era may be over, and nowhere is that reality more visible, more uncomfortable, more strategically alarming than in the race for hypersonic weapons. Because right now, as the Iran war burns and the Middle East stands on the edge of a wider catastrophe, the United States military is facing a moment it never expected to face. It is about to deploy its first hypersonic missile in combat, a weapon called Dark Eagle, not from a position of dominance, but from a position of catch-up. While Russia has been firing hypersonic missiles in combat for years, while China has accumulated a hypersonic arsenal that dwarfs anything America currently has in the field, the nation that won the Cold War, that built the technological foundation of modern warfare, is running behind in the most important weapons race of the 21st century. How did this happen? How far behind is America? And what does it mean for the future of global power? Let us start with the breaking news that triggered this video. U.S. Central Command has asked to send the Army's long-delayed Dark Eagle hypersonic missile to the Middle East for possible use against Iran, seeking a longer-range system to hit ballistic missile launchers deep inside the country. If approved, it would mark the first time the U.S. will have deployed its hypersonic missile, which is running far behind schedule and has not been declared fully operational, even as Russia and China have deployed their own versions. Security Council report. Read that again carefully. America's first hypersonic missile deployment would happen with a weapon that is not yet fully operational, not yet declared combat-ready by the Pentagon's own standards. A weapon that has experienced years of testing failures, schedule delays, and technical setbacks, and is now being rushed toward potential combat use because the Iran war has created a targeting problem that conventional weapons cannot solve as effectively. This is the state of American hypersonic power in 2026. Not triumphant, not dominant, not even fully ready, but being pushed into the field anyway, because the alternative is watching Russia and China hold an advantage in the most strategically significant weapons class of our era. To understand how profound this moment is, you have to understand what hypersonic weapons actually are and why they matter so much. A hypersonic missile is not simply a fast missile. Speed alone is not the revolution. Ballistic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles for instance, have been flying at hypersonic speeds since the 1950s. The revolution is in the combination of three things that previous generations of missiles could not achieve simultaneously. Hypersonic speed, above Mach 5 or 5 times the speed of sound. Maneuverable flight, the ability to change direction during flight, making trajectory prediction impossible. And low-altitude flight paths, flying below the radar horizon of ground-based detection systems, dramatically compressing the warning time available to defenders. Put those three things together, and you have a weapon that is traveling at several thousand kilometers per hour, following an unpredictable path that no computer model can reliably predict, and appearing on enemy radar screens only in the final seconds of its flight. Ground-based missile defense systems, the kind that the United States and its allies have spent hundreds of billions of dollars building, are designed around the predictable parabolic arcs of traditional ballistic missiles. Against a hypersonic glide vehicle that changes direction mid-flight at Mach 8, those systems are almost entirely ineffective. This is why hypersonic weapons have been called the most significant advancement in offensive military capability since the introduction of precision-guided munitions in the 1990s. They do not simply add to existing military power, they potentially render entire categories of existing military infrastructure obsolete. Aircraft carrier strike groups, which have been the backbone of American power projection for 80 years, become dramatically more vulnerable when adversaries possess hypersonic anti-ship missiles. Forward-deployed military bases, the network of installations that allow American forces to operate globally, become far less survivable when enemy hypersonic missiles can strike them with virtually no warning. The strategic calculus of global military power shifts fundamentally when hypersonic weapons enter the equation. And Russia and China understood that before America did. Russia's hypersonic program did not begin in secret. Putin announced it openly, dramatically, in a nationally televised address in 2018, presenting what he called a new generation of weapons that could evade any defense system the United States possessed. The world's analysts were skeptical. Russia had made grandiose military claims before, but in this case, Putin was not bluffing. Russia's avant-garde hypersonic glide vehicle, operational since 2019, can reportedly achieve speeds up to Mach 27 and conduct sharp, evasive maneuvers that make interception virtually impossible. Moscow has deployed avant-garde on SS-19 intercontinental ballistic missiles, with 2 regiments declared combat-ready. The scramjet-powered 3M-22 Zircon cruise missile, capable of Mach 8 and a range of 625 miles, is already deployed aboard frigates and submarines, with confirmed combat use in Ukraine in 2024. The Kh-47M2 Kinzhal air-launched ballistic missile, fired from MiG-31s and Tu-22M3s, is advertised at Mach 10 with a range of 1,200 miles. Ynet News. And then there is the Oreshnik. In August 2025, President Vladimir Putin announced that the Oreshnik hypersonic ballistic missile had entered production and would be deployed in Belarus by year's end. Oreshnik can carry conventional or nuclear warheads, reaches speeds up to Mach 10, and covers all of Europe. Putin suggested a missile duel with the United States to validate Russia's claims about Oreshnik's ability to defeat American missile defenses. Just security. Russia has not just developed hypersonic weapons, it has used them in combat. In Ukraine, against real targets, collecting real-world data on performance, reliability, and effectiveness that no amount of laboratory testing can replicate. China's hypersonic program is, if anything, even more alarming from an American strategic perspective. China has a robust hypersonic program and has conducted up to 20 times as many hypersonic missile tests as the United States. 20 times! That number alone captures the scale of the investment gap that opened up while America was distracted by 2 decades of counterterrorism wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Russia matters. China has incorporated AI-enabled precision guidance into its hypersonic systems, enhancing its goal of intelligentized warfare and expanding its nuclear arsenal toward a projected 1,000 warheads by 2030. These capabilities directly target U.S. carrier strike groups and forward-deployed forces in the Indo-Pacific, cementing hypersonics as a central pillar of China's anti-access area denial doctrine. Ynet News. China's DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicle is designed specifically to defeat American aircraft carrier battle groups. The YJ-21, first launched from aircraft in 2022, enhances China's anti-ship strike capability. Beijing even tested a fractional orbital bombardment system in 2021, a hypersonic glide vehicle that circled the globe before descending on its target, a capability that shocked American intelligence analysts who had not believed China was anywhere near that level of development. The strategic message from Beijing is unmistakable. In any conflict over Taiwan, over the South China Sea, or anywhere in the Indo-Pacific, American carrier strike groups and military bases in Japan, South Korea, Guam, and the Philippines would face hypersonic missile threats against which current American defenses have no reliable answer. Now look at the American side of this equation and understand how the gap opened. The United States began thinking about hypersonic weapons in the early 2000s. Research programs were initiated, budgets were allocated, and concepts were developed. But for 2 decades, throughout the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, America's defense industrial base and military research priorities were focused on counterterrorism, close air support, drone warfare, and the specific tactical needs of fighting insurgencies in mountainous terrain and urban environments. The great power competition that would define the 21st century was acknowledged in policy documents, but underfunded in practice. The Dark Eagle program has accumulated more than $12 billion in funding since 2018, but has missed deployment targets in fiscal years 2023 and 2025 due to technical setbacks during testing. A failed launch in 2021, a failed test in 2022, a canceled test in March 2023 due to battery issues. A program that was supposed to field its first battery in fiscal year 2023 and did not. That kept missing milestone after milestone, not because of lack of funding or political will, but because hypersonic technology is genuinely hard. The physics are brutal. A vehicle traveling at Mach 8 through the atmosphere generates surface temperatures of nearly 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Electronics designed to guide the weapon to its target must survive that thermal environment while performing complex maneuvering calculations in real time. The materials science alone represents challenges that have taken America years longer than expected to solve. NPR. A top U.S. Army official said in March 2026 that the service was very close to fielding the U.S. military's first hypersonic weapon within a few weeks, although that forecast was at odds with recent Pentagon assessments that more testing is needed before it should be deployed. Wikipedia. And yet now, before full operational capability has even been declared, Central Command is asking to send Dark Eagle to the Middle East for use against Iran. Not because it is ready, but because it is needed. There is a distinction worth drawing here that rarely gets discussed in mainstream coverage of this topic. Russia and China's hypersonic weapons are primarily designed to carry nuclear warheads. Their accuracy requirements are less demanding because a nuclear explosion does not require a direct hit to destroy a target. In a notable divergence, Russian and Chinese hypersonic missiles are designed to field nuclear warheads, while American hypersonic systems are focused on conventionally armed precision strike. Dark Eagle, if it hits its target with a conventional warhead, must hit with extreme precision, because a conventional explosion has a much smaller kill radius than a nuclear detonation. Russia matters. This means America's hypersonic challenge is actually harder than Russia's or China's. It is not enough to build a weapon that reaches the target area. It must hit the specific target. The guidance, navigation, and terminal accuracy requirements for a conventional hypersonic weapon are dramatically more demanding than for a nuclear one. In some ways, America is trying to do something harder, and doing it with a program that has been running behind schedule for years. The Air Force, meanwhile, is pursuing the Hypersonic Attack Cruise Missile, a scramjet-powered system that can be launched from F-15 fighters and fly at speeds approaching Mach 8. On April 22, 2026, the U.S. Air Force's FY 2027 budget request introduced the first procurement funding for the Hypersonic Attack Cruise Missile, with approximately $404 million allocated to acquire initial production units, marking the transition from research and development to production. Initial operational fielding is scheduled for fiscal year 2027. The conversation. That means America's air-launched hypersonic missile will not be operational until 2027 at the earliest. Russia and China have been flying operational hypersonic weapons for years. The gap is real, it is documented, and it has implications that go far beyond the Iran war. The geopolitical stakes of this technology race are enormous. Russia is ahead in deployment, China is innovating aggressively, and the United States is racing to catch up. But the race is not just about who fires first. It is about who can integrate, protect, defend, and sustain hypersonic operations in a real war environment. Just security. America's answer to the defensive side of this challenge is a program called the Golden Dome, a multi-tiered missile defense architecture that combines space-based sensors, advanced radars, and new interceptor systems designed specifically to track and destroy hypersonic weapons. The Missile Defense Agency has awarded hundreds of millions of dollars to develop a glide phase interceptor, designed to destroy hypersonic weapons during their mid-flight phase, with initial operational capability expected in the early 2030s. The United States is also building a space-based tracking network to solve the fundamental detection problem, because ground-based radars cannot reliably track hypersonic weapons until the final seconds of their flight. But these defensive systems will not be ready for years. And in the meantime, the United States faces a strategic environment in which adversaries possess weapons that can strike American military assets, ships, bases, command centers, with virtually no warning, and against which current defenses have no reliable answer. This is the context in which Dark Eagle is being rushed toward potential combat use in Iran. Not as a triumphant demonstration of American technological supremacy, but as a necessary operational capability being fielded before it is fully ready, because the alternative is fighting a 21st century war with 20th century tools, while adversaries exploit a window of hypersonic advantage. The implications of this moment extend far beyond the Middle East. In any future conflict with China over Taiwan, which remains one of the most plausible scenarios for great power war in the coming decade, America's ability to project military power into the Western Pacific would face hypersonic threats for which it currently has limited defenses. Chinese DF-17 missiles could target American carrier strike groups. Chinese YJ-21s could strike forward bases in Japan and Guam. The American military presence that has kept the peace in the Indo-Pacific for 80 years would face a threat environment fundamentally different from anything it has prepared for. In any renewed confrontation with Russia in Eastern Europe, where NATO's eastern flank faces a Russian military that has used hypersonic weapons in actual combat and collected operational data that no other military in the world possesses, American and European forces would face the Kinzhal, the Zircon, and potentially the Oreshnik in a European theater of operations, where the entire NATO missile defense architecture was built for a different kind of threat. An Atlantic Council study concluded that the slow development of hypersonic weapons by the United States, combined with the efforts of Russia and China, is creating battlefield asymmetry, a critical gap in U.S. military capabilities that requires Washington to accelerate deployments and overhaul production to close the gap. Iran International. The United States is spending its way toward closing that gap. The FY 2026 defense budget included $6.5 billion for conventional and hypersonic munitions, and nearly $4 billion specifically for hypersonic weapons research and development. The industrial base is being scaled up. Testing infrastructure is being expanded. Programs that were canceled, like the Air Force's air-launched rapid response weapon, are being revived. New companies are entering the field, like Ursa Major with its Havoc missile system, designed to be produced rapidly and in quantity. By the end of this decade, the gap may narrow significantly. American programs are maturing, testing successes are accumulating, and unlike Russia and China, which are fielding nuclear-armed hypersonic systems, America is building a precision conventional strike capability that, if it works as designed, will be operationally more flexible and strategically less escalatory than its adversaries' weapons. But right now, in April 2026, as the Iran war burns and Central Command asks for Dark Eagle to be sent to the Middle East, the gap is real, and the window of American vulnerability is open. For the first time since the Cold War, the United States is entering a potential major military confrontation without clear technological superiority in a weapons category that could be decisive. And the world is watching to see how it responds. The age of American military technological dominance was built over decades. Rebuilding it, in a world where China tests 20 hypersonic weapons for every one America tests, and where Russia has been firing them in actual combat, will take years of investment, political commitment, and strategic patience that Washington is only now beginning to demonstrate. Dark Eagle is America's first step back into the game. It is not the finish line, it is the starting gun, and the race is already years behind schedule, where we track the weapons, the strategies, and the decisions that are rewriting global power. Stay locked in.